Hi, this is Rabbi Cat Zavis from Beit Tikkun, a synagogue without walls. And I'm here with this week's musings on Parsha Ki Teitzei. Honestly, this week's Parsha could give one a whiplash with its back and forth between its voice that not only uplifts, but outright mandates violence and slaughter, and also its voice that uplifts and mandates compassion and care. And in that way, it captures and reflects the reality of our world today. On one hand, we live in a world that uplifts, justifies, and even mandates violence in the name of self-defense. And on the other hand, we live in a world that updates and engages in radical acts of compassion and care that includes putting one's own body on the line and in the crossfire. This week's Parsha starts with what Israelites should and should not do when they go out to war and are victorious and take captives. You can take a beautiful woman into your home, but first you must cut her hair and her nails, discard her clothes, and let her mourn the loss of her family before you sleep with her and take her as your wife. The Parsha continues with the mandate that if a woman is raped in a field, she must cry out so others hear her. And if she fails to do so, she will be deemed complicit in the rape and then stoned to death. And the Parsha continues with more justifications for ownership, rape, violence, death, stoning, and murder. The Torah was written at a time when the people were in exile, when they had witnessed the destruction of the temple and the horrors and violence committed against them. They were disenfranchised, disempowered people. So we can have some compassion for those who wanted to imagine a time when they would be the ones with power. They recognized the dangers of unfettered power, the desire for revenge, the hatred and fear, and how those could lead to rage and revenge. They tried to create some boundaries for and rules of engagement in war and the conquering of another people. I am in no way suggesting that what they created is justified, sufficient, or okay, just that we might try and understand where they were coming from, a place of trauma. And at the same time, there were others who insisted on emphasizing compassion and kindness. Their traumatic experience and memory of oppression and suffering drove them to want to bring forth more care in the world and to see the other, or at least some of the others, as deserving of empathy and compassion. So in the same Parsha, we read about not taking a baby bird from the nest while its mother's there. To make sure when you build a house with a balcony, you put protection around the balcony so no one falls off and is injured. We are told, do not abhor an Adamite because they are your kin, and do not abhor Egyptians because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This is the Parsha that tells us to loan without interest, that you can eat from another's vineyards and gardens, that you must not return a slave that has escaped, and that you are to leave the corners of your fields for those who are in need of food. You must also pay your laborers reasonable wages and do so on time. Today, the nation state of Israel and some Jewish Israelis and diasporic Jews still see we still see ourselves as a victim. The trauma of the Holocaust and centuries of Jewish oppression were reignited on October 7th and subsequently weaponized to justify the slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Hamas's attack made Israel realize that even with all of its machinery, weapons, and technology, it could still not protect its citizens from a violent attack within its own borders. Rather than acknowledge that weapons, machinery, and technology do not ultimately make one safe or a nation safe, Israel seems to have embraced and continues to embrace the ideology of the voice in this Parsha that justifies violence and expansionary wars. Thankfully, the voice of compassion and kindness that is in this Parsha is also alive and well today. People are showing up in Palestine to try and protect Palestinians from attacks by settlers and the army. People all around the world are crying out for justice and liberation for Palestinians. uplifting their voices and demanding an end to the genocide and the attacks and incursions in the West Bank. And even within Israel, people are demanding a ceasefire and an end to the attacks on Gaza and in the West Bank. While it may seem that the forces of evil and domination are flourishing throughout the world, we are reminded every Friday night that someday they will be washed away and justice will prevail and be as strong and tall as a cedar in Lebanon. May this Shabbat be a time when we hold on to this vision of a future where love, justice, kindness, generosity, and peace prevail. And may we return to the work in the coming weeks of taking a stand and engaging in acts that bring forth the redemption we all seek and deserve. Shabbat Shalom. Please look in the below in the links for the link to join us for High Holidays. We'll be hosting and having services both in person in Oakland, California, and on Zoom for all of the services for the High Holy Days. And we'd love to have you join us. Shabbat Shalom.